Welcome back, my YouTube family. I'm that wood guy. Here we are with another soft maple burl, and this thing is a little different. I thought of splitting it in half, making a couple different ones. Thought of making, one burl just really thin, but it had really deep pockets that I was a little concerned about. So I ended up cutting it right in half. No, I really did. So after I had some rough machining done, I kind of somewhat figured out what I wanted to do with this thing. And you just sometimes don't know with these pieces until you just dive into them, either starting on the lathe or starting like you guys seen me, cutting the thing right in half and developing something else. And that's clearly what I had going on here. Went through the drum sander to sand these things up roughly, and I was on to rejoining them back together. Now, some of you might say, why didn't I cut this like one big whole cookie? And I didn't have a jig set up at the time to cut this and slice this properly, either on the sawmill or the bandsaw down here. So that's why I cut it in half, and that enabled me to take that flat surface, run it through the joiner like you see me doing, and then I had a seam to put back together. So I had two halves that reduced the height, is basically what my goal was. So after I glued it up, rejoined it back together, I let it set overnight. So the next day here, you guys see me unclamp it, and I was getting ready for my bow ties. This is something I have to give credit to my dad, as he taught me, if you can't hide something, make it stand out. And my concern was the seam that I rejoined the burl back together wasn't just, quite gone completely. So I figured I'd make it, highlight it a little bit with these paddock bow ties. After I made the pocket in the burl, I made the actual bow tie in the paddock. If you guys have made it this far in the video, I really appreciate it. And make sure you guys go back and check out my other woodworking videos. If you also want to see more of the shop, I did a shop tour video. I've done some more detailed videos about the shop, and I'll keep doing so if you guys are interested. So make sure you let me know down in the comments maybe some more things you'd like to see of the shop, or maybe some more suggestions for projects in the future. So after I had the bow ties all made up here, I did a little bit of custom sanding on the corners, and I glued them in, and that part was done. Guys, I like to use the Type On 3 because it is like semi of a waterproof glue, and it also works good for any sort of exotic species that maybe have different oils than your domestic species. So this glue is a really good strong wood glue. So I wanted to come up with some sort of base for this burl that I had created, and in my mind I was already executed a design in my head, and like I said, I needed to come up with a base to be able to fully accomplish this plan. And again, I used the paddock for a contrast because the burl was already kind of like a lighter color, and I had the paddock bow ties in the top, so I figured it was going to match nice. So I'm drilling a Forstner bit recess here, getting ready for the wood lathe. Rather than mess around trying to make a perfect circle any other way, the wood lathe was a perfect alternative. I also needed to hollow out the center of this. Once I had the center all hollowed out, I was all set with that part. It was on to making some legs. So I started out with a square 1x1 and slowly worked this down to a spindle. And if you guys have ever turned long spindles on your wood lathe, it can be a little tricky because you get chatter. I didn't have to break out my steady rest, which if anybody doesn't know what that is, that reduces chatter. But I had all three of my legs made up, and I was finally ready to cut them to length and attach them. And attach them to my base, and I needed to have them on a 10-degree angle so that it gave me a nice sturdy tripod for my burl. And again, guys, this is just another asset of having this milling machine. Drilling these holes on an angle, it's just not easy to do on a drill press. Finally had a base, upside down. The longest part of this project, my friends, honestly, was getting this burl finished and sealed the proper way. And that is, getting out all the loose debris and dirt. And I had to also make sure I got the finish in every nook and cranny. It really, preserves the whole burl, but it just turned into a remarkable piece at the end.